Hi, it's Mark Sisson. Welcome to the Primal Blueprint Podcast, where we deliver a variety of fresh content to help you live awesome. Enjoy the show. Engage with us online at marksdailyapple.com and on social media, and send your questions to info@primalblueprint.com.
Hey everyone, really special guest today on the Primal Blueprint Podcast, one of my favorite authors, someone who he doesn't know it yet, but has been an absolute influence in my life and my success, helping me become successful with his words of encouragement, his books, his programs. You might have seen him in the movie The Secret, but basically, John has been in the head of the thought movement and the spirituality realm for a long time now. He's one of the leading mindset experts in our country. He's appeared numerous times on Larry King Live, Ellen DeGeneres, just to name a few, Anderson Cooper, and has built 5 multi-million-dollar companies, and as well is the author of 2 New York Times bestselling books, amongst so many other wonderful content he's brought to everybody. And now we're going to talk about his company. He's the CEO of NeuroGym, and you can go to NeuroGym.com to find out more. We're going to talk all about how his programs can help us change our brain and affect our performance and enhance our lives. Welcome to our show, John.
It is so great to be here. And just to clarify one little thing, it's myneurogym.com.
Thank you. myneurogym.com. And we will, of course, make sure that's corrected in the notes. How did you, before I get into some of the specific questions about NeuroGym, what brought you into this arena? You've been in the thought movement, subconscious imprinting, and then what took it to this level?
Well, I started out my illustrious career getting into a lot of trouble as a teen, where the path that I was on was either I'm going to be in jail or I'm going to be dead in the morgue. And I had a mentor who, I guess he saw, I met a man who became a mentor, and he saw that I was a troubled teen, and he asked me some questions that I dove deeper into as to why was I doing the things that could get me killed or put in jail. And my answer to him was, I don't know. And I just kept saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. He said, but you know better. And I'd say, I know. He said, but then why are you doing these things? I said, I don't know. And he interested me enough to share with me, well, there must be some subconscious conditioning or programming that is overriding what you know you should be doing, what you know you could be doing, and you're just behaving based on these subconscious patterns. So back when I was 19 years old, I got into this first lesson that there's a conscious brain, there's a subconscious brain. The subconscious brain is what really controls our behaviors and our results. And I just got fascinated. And so I started to get mentored by this gentleman. His name was Alan Brown. And he asked me a bunch of questions nobody ever asked me before. He taught me things that nobody ever taught me before. And he gave me an open canvas to create the life that I wanted to create. But then he gave me tools and resources back, 37 years ago to start retraining my brain so that I could achieve some of those grander vision and goals that I had in my life. And that was the beginning of it. And I'll share some stories in a little bit, but that was the real beginning of understanding that we have 2 brains, not one, conscious and subconscious, but we're not taught how to use the subconscious brain. And now the latest neuroscience research and neuropsychology research has given us the user's manual. And that's really the stuff that I love.
For those that are watching and listening and aren't quite sure what you mean by subconscious and what could be a subconscious thought that we might not know we have that could be affecting our life negatively? Can you give a few examples of some of those?
So let's understand that right now, while you're watching, you're not focusing on how your cells are dying and your hair is growing and new cells are being created, or your heartbeat is beating, or you're digesting whatever you ate. You're not focusing on that. That's all subconscious method or workings of the subconscious brain. And that's one thing. When you have a random thought that pops into your head, those are subconscious in nature. When you all of a sudden feel this intuition that something is wrong, but you don't know how you know it, that's your subconscious working. When you feel fearful of doing something. That's your subconscious working. It's giving you a signal that up until that moment you didn't feel. And so conscious is all about using imagination. Conscious is all about, choosing, do I want this or do I want that? Is this better for me? Does this look better? Do I like this outfit or that outfit? But subconscious is really all of the automatic operating system of the self, of the human being. And the latest research suggests that even though we think we are in control, we're only in control 2 to 3% of the time. And 97% of how we think, what we feel, how we react, and what we do is based on these habitual patterns that have been ingrained and trained for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years that just run automatically.
People don't realize that they can rewire their brain and they can retrain their brains, which is what, you're in the business of helping people do. What are some of these newest scientific studies that, in research that are helping people unlock this hidden power?
Sure. So first and foremost, it might be worthwhile helping people understand, why do we become stuck? What really prevents us from achieving the goals and dreams that we have? So in a world that we live in today, you can type into Google, how do I fill in the blank? How do I put on makeup? How do I buy shoes inexpensively? How do I set up my TV remote control? How do I build a business? How do I lose weight and keep it off? All the how-to is available today for just about everything we want in health, wealth, relationships, career, business, etc. So if all the how-to is available, then what really stands in people's way? The number one, and it's not in order, but number one is self-image and self-esteem. So when you ask yourself, do I really believe that I either deserve to achieve that look, that goal, that relationship, that income, that business, that success? Do I really believe it? You may say on a conscious level, yes, you believe it, but if hidden in the subconscious mind, there's a little voice that says, but you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you don't deserve this. If there is an imbalance between the conscious and subconscious mind, it creates chaos in the brain. So the self-image of what people believe they deserve is one of the key factors that holds people back. Number two is fears are subconscious, and there's over 50 of them. So for example, let's say you have a goal. It doesn't make a difference what the goal is: lose weight, get into a better relationship, make more money, build my business. If at the subconscious level, there's a fear of failure, you're going to put the brakes on because you're going to be afraid that you might fail. So am I really willing to risk it? If there's a fear that you will try your best and not succeed and disappoint yourself, your spouse, your children, or anybody else, if there's a fear of disappointment, the brakes go on. If there's a fear that you might be embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged, brakes go on. If there's a fear that you'll succeed and then fail, because you've heard about it or it's happened before, chances are the motivation that you have to achieve it will be overridden by the fear. And these happen subconsciously. Third is limiting beliefs. So I have a goal of X, but I have a limiting belief. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the skill. I'm too young. I'm too old. I've tried this before, but it didn't work. I've seen my brother, my sister, my mother, my father try this, and it doesn't work. So limiting beliefs, put the brakes on. And then the best one of all is we develop these stories, these narratives in our brain of why it's possible, why it's not, why I can, why I can't. We get accustomed to this comfort zone called our current reality. And then our brain must make sure that our outside world, our reality, matches our internal stories. And all of our excuses match up to keep that story the same. And so these are all subconscious patterns that are greater than not having knowledge and skills. And this is why so many people that read books, go to seminars, listen to podcasts, go to events, do not change because there's a part of the brain that gathers information and activates the motivational circuits. And there's a whole other few parts of the brain that are responsible that you have to get in alignment and in coherence in order for you to take action consistently. And that involves changing or reducing the habitual patterns that's easy for your brain to fire off because you've been doing it for so long, and you've got to deactivate those basically and create new patterns that become the new way of you thinking and feeling and being. And so this is why I'm so fascinated with the topic, because we now can go into the brain and understand how these circuits turn on and off. What neurochemicals are the motivator neurochemicals? What neurochemicals are the put the brakes on and no way am I going to do this neurochemicals? What are the ones that cause stress? What are the ones that cause calmness and peace? And so we're at the point now where we're getting enough information for us to be able to equip ourselves with the tools for our mindset and emotional management and control, and for us to develop new empowering habits as we release the disempowering, destructive ones.
So well said. There's so much to unpack there. I really like that you brought up limiting beliefs and also some random ones, which are, you may on the surface be like, of course, I believe I deserve that, but there might be a fear of success, a fear of shame. Maybe you have someone I've talked to people who had someone embarrassing in their family, were worried to become a public figure or known because, so there's stuff that sometimes wouldn't be obvious that, you may be a person with high self-esteem, even like myself. And I've mentioned this before in a couple of podcasts, which is I'm extremely confident human being. I really do create with intention, but I have a physical disability I've had for 23 years. It took me many, many years to not be ashamed of being okay with just admitting it, because it's not something you can see. So I could get away with that. And, I can see now when I look back how that hindered so many things. It hindered vulnerability, open relationships, certain opportunities, maybe certain connections, all because I had this fear of being judged or whatever it was for having this thing.
Yeah. Judged and shamed. And first and foremost, that's normal, because when we understand, I always keep my brain handy so I can take it out and look at it. When you understand what the operating hierarchy is, the brain, the number one above all else is safety first. So what kind of safety? Well, emotional safety, mental safety, physical safety. So anytime we have a fear in the brain, fear is triggered because we don't feel safe. We feel like we might be embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged. And so when that happens, the neurochemistry of fear activates, and it actually sends a rush of cortisol, epinephrine, or norepinephrine. These are the fight or flight response system neurochemicals in the brain that causes the brakes to go on of our behavior and moving forward. It's a stop signal. And what most people don't understand is, first and foremost, we have a brain. We're not our brains. We have emotions. We're not our emotions. And there are ways to learn how to recognize, how to utilize the tool you have better. And that's what really excites me, because fear is normal. You're never, ever, ever going to eliminate fear. It has been around for billions of years of evolution in our brain. And so eliminating that is not a possibility, but learning how to recognize it, reframing it, releasing it, and retraining the brain so that the stimuli, internal or external, does not stop you from taking action. That is the key. And that is where we are now, where we can actually learn how to recognize, the emotions, the light bulbs in our life. I often suggest, imagine you're driving your car. And if you're low on gas, the red light pops up. If your tires are low, the yellow light pops up. If the trunk is open, the blue light pops up on your screen. Well, imagine if the yellow and green and blue and red lights, those are all signals. Well, what if we said, we have emotions like anger, sadness, fear, love, happiness, contempt, guilt, shame. These are all emotions that are signals that something is going on in here. Well, what if we could learn how to recognize, hey, the signal's just been activated, but when was the last time anybody gave you or me, when we were growing up, tools to recognize it, reframe it, release and retrain our brain so it does not stop us? Nobody's gotten emotional management and control training in school, grade school, high school, kindergarten, university, unless they were specifically signed up for a class that offered that, which I have yet to see.
I'm so glad you brought up fight or flight. We talk about the horrors of output of too much cortisol and stress and anxiety and all of the medical situations that it causes. And it could be something this simple that I give an example where, like, you're driving in your car, someone cuts you off, and for a moment, your heart drops into your stomach. And at that moment, cortisol is surging. You're not threatened. It's over. And so some of this stuff, at least, I haven't been through your program, but in starting to be aware of these things and knowing that when that happens to me now, I make a conscious decision to kind of breathe it out and get my heart rate down, because I know that if I let that feeling go, if I call a person this motherfucker, just snap, if I continue that cortisol is just going to keep going. It's going to be antagonistic to so many things that I'm trying to do with my health. Furthermore, just my state of being. And you touched on this a little bit, but could we get into what is disappointment avoidance? Is that just really about the fear of being disappointed or not succeeding that you already mentioned, or is there something deeper here?
Yeah, so let me use weight loss as an example. Okay, there are over 10,000 different diets out there on the market. Chances are that anybody who's watching this right now has been on at least one diet where they have lost weight and they gained it back. And chances are, if they're over 40 or 50, they've been on 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 diets that has happened, where they've lost weight, gained it back, lost weight, gained it back. And they're so tired of that yo-yo syndrome that they won't go on another diet because they're fearful of disappointing either themselves or the people that they told they're going on a diet, and they've had pictures when they were heavier and pictures when they were lighter, only to be embarrassed to put their pictures up when they're heavier again and then proclaim them going on another diet. So disappointment avoidance is our brain's way of saying, you've done this so many times, instead of having you disappoint yourself again, I'm just going to shut off that goal and don't even try. And millions and millions and millions of people in relationships, in careers, in business, in their health are suffering from disappointment avoidance as something that is holding them back, that they don't know how to override and create a better process so that they take action and succeed.
Is that repetition compulsion as well? Are those hand in hand, essentially bookending each other?
It goes hand in hand. We tend to repeat patterns over and over and over again. So let's say you do something and there's a reward for it, and then you repeat it again. There's another reward. You repeat it again. There's another reward. You shared with somebody else. There's a double reward there because you're releasing oxytocin through the sharing bonding chemical. Well, guess what you're prone to do? Repeat that pattern. That's positive. Let's say you do something and fail, and then you do something and fail again, you do something and fail again. Your brain doesn't decipher between, something real or imagined, something that is really good for you or something that isn't. It becomes conditioned regardless of patterns. It is not a choice organ, okay? You get to use your brain to make choices. Any pattern that you repeat, if you keep wondering, why isn't this working? I wonder why it's not working. How come I'm not so lucky? I'm worried that I'm going to meet the wrong guy. I'm afraid that if I start my business or leave my job or this is going to happen. And you keep repeating that, your brain basically says, oh, since you're spending so much time on all this negativity or failure or whatever the case is, I'm just going to make that a default pattern in the brain. And I'll conserve energy because earlier I said the number one responsibility of the brain is safety. You know what the number 2 is? Conserve energy. So anything that you repeat, any thought you repeat, any emotion you repeat, any behavior you repeat, any result you repeat, your brain says, oh, let me just make that automatic. And you don't have to even think about it. I'm just going to have you have these random thoughts that are negative or disempowering. I'm going to have these random emotions that are going to be, by the way, triggered around the same time every day. And I'm going to have you do the same behaviors every single day to conserve energy.
It's really fascinating. I've seen brain scans live action when someone has learned something, and you see it's just so fascinating. And I know you're going to probably touch on some of that stuff, but you mentioned evidence-based technologies and some other methodologies that can really help transform someone from the inside out. What are those? Can you give us a snapshot of what that looks like?
So let's talk about, technologies that are available right now. We know that our brains, have different brain waves. And we know that, for example, in the alpha brainwave frequency, we're more prone to learning, to be calm, to be responsive. We know in the beta, we could be learning stuff, but it's not activating, deep levels of memory. We know in delta and theta, we're in a dreamlike state or in a relaxed state or in an immune enhanced state while we're sleeping. And so we can use either auditory or visual stimulation to activate different brain waves so that we learn faster. We focus better. We can release traumas easier. We can let go of limiting beliefs or fears or the stories and excuses that hold us back a lot easier when we're in certain brainwave states and states of consciousness versus others. And so using a variety of techniques like mindfulness training, like meditation training, like auditory stimulation training that activates different brain waves or causes the brainwave to refocus on a more frequent basis when it hears an unusual sound or tone or voice or symbol. Using mental contrasting techniques where you take somebody who has a fear of, let's say, snakes, and then you just have them see their fear of snakes, experience their fear of snakes in a calm, relaxed state that you can teach them through breathing. I call it inner-sizing, which is my new book, Inner-Size, A New Science to Unlock Your Brain's Hidden Power. But when you teach them some new techniques to get into the right states of consciousness and awareness, you can deactivate limiting beliefs, deactivate fear, deactivate the stories and excuses that want to cause the stress response to activate. When you do certain exercises in a relaxed, calm state, you are now in control versus being a victim or reactive.
And then it seems as though through that process, in let's say the snake example, that you would then be almost now putting a new emotion with the visual. Yes. So as to what in the future, my reaction, my fight or flight won't be as strong over time. It'll just be less and less. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. You can use cognitive behavior therapy, but with mental contrast, if we step back for just a moment and say, most people that have a fear of snakes have never even touched a snake. They have heard stories on TV. They've read stories in books about pythons. They've seen YouTube videos of a once in 100 billion times somebody is eaten by a snake. And so that formulates their belief pattern in their brain. And so they have this visceral reaction to a memory that's not even theirs. And so if you can deactivate that memory and create a new experience and association to snakes, then you can get them to overcome their fear of snakes. And so let's assume you can use desensitization therapy as well, where you take somebody who's afraid of snakes and you give them like a snake about that big, on the palm of their hand. And then you make it a little 6 inches bigger once they get over the squirminess, if that's what bothers them, or the sensation of touching it. You create some new associations for them. You can start to desensitize them and their fear of snakes, because of what they really are afraid of is a memory of something that they either read or heard or experienced somewhere else that really has nothing to do with the fear.
Well, and I want to highlight that. That goes back to the limiting beliefs and all these other things that can be imprinted by other people. What they say, it doesn't even have to be one's own personal experience. And that's why it's worth looking at it, because some of these things aren't even ours, right?
That's right. Now, I totally get if somebody says, I really don't like the feeling of a snake. Great, then let's change that from a fear to a feeling, and let's categorize it just like, I really don't like pasta. I'm not afraid of pasta just because I don't like it. Now we can take what is typically known as this, oh no, I don't like snakes, to no, I just don't like the feeling of snakes. Okay, now we can lower the firing threshold, okay, of the amygdala and the stress response to no, I just choose not to like snakes or to touch them or to hold them, but I'm not afraid of them. So a lot of times people confuse sensations and fears based on stories that are not even theirs. And so they adopt stuff from television, parents, sisters, brothers, friends, etc., and they own the experience. And again, what's the brain supposed to do, right? If you have heard of a close friend or family member that got bitten by a snake, which is, I've never heard of anybody's got bitten by a snake in 57 years. But if they did get bitten by a snake, that memory, snakes and your friend or family member, that memory, that neural pattern exists in your subconscious mind, in your memory bank. And anytime the word snake comes up, that's the memory that pops up first, which triggers the neurochemistry that you feel called your emotions.
I used to actually be very afraid of flying. And I used to listen to you and your audiobooks. This was many years ago when The Secret came out. And it helped me through so many flights. It eventually helped me to get off taking any kind of medication for that flight. It's not that I don't have a few moments, but what I did is I had to get to what was I afraid of? And some people say, oh, because you're not driving the plane, it's a control thing. For me, it was a statistics thing. It was, if this thing goes down, usually people don't survive. So if this thing goes down, I'm dead. And what I really realized is that I was afraid of dying. And I actually just had to get to the point where I became unafraid of dying. And also just started to tell the story, I'm not going out like that. And my flying experience has been so much less stressful. Now, again, it's not that I don't have a moment, but then I have the tools to kind of breathe it out, talk myself through it, put on something. And you helped me so much with that through some of your audiobooks. And you weren't even doing this then. I mean, you were, but it was in a different capacity. But you have helped me through you helped me get over the fear of flying. Let's talk about the Brain-A-Thon. This is really exciting. What is it and how can it help us? I mean, I've benefited from your work so much. I'm just glad you're getting into this area of neuroscience, because a lot of times people really want to hold on to the scientific stuff, or it makes more sense to them in order to move forward, versus some of the more spiritual talk that can just not be some people's things. But this is science and it's real, and we can see it on CAT scans. And so I'm excited about what you're offering. Tell us about this Brain-A-Thon.
Awesome. Well, spirituality really focuses on, the wisdom, the intelligence within you and all around you. And a lot of the spiritual practices teach you how to tap into your own wisdom and into the energetic intelligence that's all around us. That's cool. Now, the neuroscience field tries to understand, what's really happening in the human brain. What circuits turn on when I look at a rose? What circuits turn on or off when I set a big goal I don't know how to achieve? What circuits turn on or off where I'm uncertain, I'm lacking confidence because I don't know what to do? And so the reason I got into the neuroscience field and into, doing this Brain-A-Thon is I wanted to take some of the friends that I have who are the best in the world at the research and teaching. Here's what we've learned about possibility thinking. Here's what we learned about setting goals versus achieving goals. When you set a goal, instead of doing just this, do this, and you're going to increase your chance of achieving that goal by 75 or 100%. When you have these disempowering emotions, here's a few techniques to use to let them go so they don't control you. So what I did is I asked a bunch of my colleagues if they would come on and do a training session with me that usually lasts 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. And people usually join for 1 or 2 or 3 hours. And a lot of times they just don't want to leave because the content is so good. And so, for example, we have coming up for this year's amazing new Brain-A-Thon, I'm doing a session on the new psychology of goal achievement. And it's all based on the latest research of where we set goals versus what causes us to achieve goals. Then we're going to have Dr. Sarah Mackay, Oxford University neuroscientist, talking about the neuroscience of habits. So how are they created? How do we let go of the ones that hold us back, that keep us stuck, that limit our success? And how do we create new ones that empower us? And she's going to be teaching a process called Refire to Rewire Your Brain based on the most advanced neuroscience research right now. I've got Dr. Srinivasan Pillai from Harvard, and he is one of the leading brain imaging experts in the world and psychiatrists in the world. And he'll be teaching, how do you tap into that hidden power and potential of your subconscious mind? Absolutely a brilliant individual, one of the top professors at Harvard. I've got Dr. Paul Sheely, who is, just an incredible researcher, but also an amazing teacher on how to activate your superpowers. And he believes, and I agree with him, every human being's got some superpowers, but they don't know how to activate them. And they don't know how to really tap into them so that they can propel their lives forward. And so Dr. Paul Sheely will be there as well. We've got Mark Waldman, one of the top brain researchers in the world, talk about how do you let go of disempowering thoughts and emotions. And we also have Dr. Caroline Leaf, one of the leading metacognition experts in the world and brain scientists, who really can focus on, she loves the spirituality side and the subconscious mind, how to let go of limiting thoughts, emotions, and choices. And then Lisa Wimberger, also brilliant neuroscience researcher, and she's going to be connecting with everybody and teaching some of her techniques to, create new patterns of success as you let go of patterns that hold you back. And so 7 of us brain success experts will be teaching. We're going to have some of our amazing NeuroGym clients who are using inner sizing to change their brains, talk about how they're transforming as well. And it's going to be just an amazing event that'll help people get unstuck and unlock their brain for greater levels of success. And we've been doing it this is our 7th year, and over 1 million people have joined us for our previous Brain-A-Thons. So last year, we had 162,000 people sign up for it just for the day of the Brain-A-Thon, which is, I think, what we're going to invite everybody that's watching this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the 7th annual Brain-A-Thon. It's October 6th, 2018. We're going to put the link in the show notes and everything to get there. Let's touch on some of these 180 success stories, people who were maybe really limited and held back in life via fear, limiting belief, shame, whatever it is. I know you've seen so many 180s. You've seen people really improve their life. Can you give us a few specific examples of some people that have benefited so tremendously from this? I mean, it's so possible. I've done it myself with certain things. I just know that this is absolutely worthwhile for everyone.
Sure. So there's a lady by the name of Kat Rama Brooks. And Kat Rama is 83 years old now. A couple of years ago, her business, which was a wedding planning business that she and her husband had, was just going into the tanks. I mean, she thought she was going to go bankrupt, no money, no clients, absolutely going down the toilet. She actually joined us for the Brain-A-Thon, discovered how she was holding herself back with her limiting beliefs because she was too old. Maybe it's time for her to close up her shop, and how she was perpetuating more negativity and disempowering behaviors. And she realized that when she watched the Brain-A-Thon, we gave her some tools and techniques to change the way she was thinking and to change her behaviors. And in the next 12 months, she made $240,000. She took her husband on a $55,000 trip, fully paid cash, best of their lives. And the best part was, she said, you know what, now I know I'm not too old. I could do whatever I want. I could take care of myself. And that was especially valuable since her husband passed about a year later.
Oh, that's so sweet. And also it's what a great inspiration that it is. You can't throw out well, I'm old, might as well just give up. She still had a passion for this. She turned it around.
Yeah, that's one story. Another story that comes up is Sonya Hatter. And Sonya Hatter was a gal who became a mom, gained weight, lost it, but she always wanted to get on stage and share some of her life stories. So she was petrified of public speaking, but she always wanted to share. But she was squashed by one of her teachers in school. That a teacher she really liked embarrassed her when she got up to speak this one time, and she had this debilitating fear of ever speaking out in public. Happily married, great mom, debilitating fear. So guess what she decides? She says, I want to enter into a bodybuilding contest, but I'm petrified of going on stage. Well, she was able to watch our Brain-A-Thon, understand what the fear was doing in her body and how that was a debilitating effect on her taking action. So she started to innercise, and guess what happened? She signed up for a bodybuilding contest, even though she was petrified. Then she hired a trainer to help her get in shape. And then she practiced some mental rehearsal techniques that she was taught of being on stage and accepting an award. And 8 months later, Sonya Hatter won the bodybuilding championship for her category in her first event ever. And guess what Sonya Hatter is doing now? She is public speaking, teaching people how she stepped into her greatness by recognizing and releasing the fear that held her back.
Isn't that amazing? Becoming almost like a subject expert in the thing that once was the thing that was your block. I mean, it's wonderful. I love those stories, and from very different perspectives there. Yeah.
And we've got, business success, health success. We have another gal, Francesca. She, her parents, when she was getting her driver's license in Basel, Switzerland, when she was a young girl, her mother kept saying, just be careful, don't get into an accident. Just be careful, don't get into an accident. Over and over and over again. Her mother was petrified of driving. She passed it on to her daughter, and her daughter, in her first week of driving, got into an accident. She didn't get into a car for 35 years, even though she had a Mercedes sitting outside in the parking lot. She watched the Brain-A-Thon, realized, oh my God, this has been holding me back. She sent us a video just recently of her in her car driving her Mercedes, being so thankful that she was able to get over this limiting belief and these fears. So I can share thousands of stories with you of people that had limiting beliefs that they got from parents, from their own experiences, or fears or self-image issues where people feel I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, I'm not deserving enough. They're nothing more than mental constructs or patterns in the brain that when you learn how to recognize them and reframe them, release them, and retrain them, you're set free. And that is really what the Brain-A-Thon is all about. So I've got world-renowned experts to help. And it's free.
That's an amazing panel of people you have coming up. And then, so this is an online event, correct? And can you tell us a little bit about just the logistics of me at home wanting to participate? What is that like?
Sure. So set aside some time in your day. It starts at 9:00 on Saturday morning, October the 6th. That's 9:00 Pacific, 12:00 New York time. And I'm not sure what time that is in Europe or Asia, but 9 a.m. Pacific, 12:00 Eastern. And just get on your computer, get a pad of paper ready, and pay close attention. You're going to uncover that, number one, everybody has limiting beliefs and fears, and everybody has those, but there are ways to let them go. And so you're going to discover how to let them go, and you're going to discover some tools and techniques to retrain your brain and to create a better strategy for yourself to be able to step into the greatest victories and successes that your life has to offer.
I know that you are, originally was known as sort of the master of intention and creating your own reality. You've done so many interviews on that. One of the things I want to touch on, though, which is probably a little bit tangential to this, and I would just like you to discuss this, because there's a lot of people out there who, and regardless of what your spiritual situation is, God or a belief or in it or not, I know that you are a fan of allowing room for the unknown, right? You know, that I guess part of the fear and part of this matching reality is, let's talk a little bit about how realistic statistics, these kind of things people throw out. I mean, I've heard something like, well, you know, it's really hard to get a publisher. I don't know, wasn't for me. So I'm one of the people that it wasn't hard for. Like, you know, 50% of new businesses fail. And it's like, well, how about I be on this side? So it's not only turning the tables to the positive, but it's trying to be okay with understanding there might be a way you don't yet know, right? Not defining that how, and we don't have to get into whole law of attraction, you know, lecture here, but I think that could open up a lot of people in success if they were a little bit open to the unknown. And for people that don't have faith, how can you get faith in the unknown if you don't believe in a God there? You know, what's your quantum physics or, you know, spiel on that? Because I wish more people would be open to just the unknown, if that makes sense.
Sure. So when I was in my early 20s and late 20s, I started to study some of the natural laws of the universe. So what I uncovered, obviously, there's a physical universe, of hear, see, smell, taste, and touch that is pretty easy to get your hands around. And then there's a non-physical universe. So if you think about this, at one point, in our history, we believed that an atom was indivisible. That's what atom means, indivisible. And then we learned that we can not only divide an atom, but there's more power and potential in the nucleus of an atom, hence atomic bomb. So there's more power the deeper we go into nature that you cannot see with the naked eye. So we use telescopes to look out. We use microscopes to look deep in. And now we can start to get a bigger picture of the order and intelligence of nature. So I personally am not religious, but I'm extremely connected to my spirituality. And all that means for me is that there's an intelligence that gives me life right now. I'm in it. It's in me. I don't have to think about breathing. I don't have to think about moving my hands. You just do. I don't have to think about the trees growing. I don't have to think about that because nature has got this infinite intelligence within it. So the question that I started to ask 37 years ago is there a way for me to be in resonance with all of the abundance of nature? The Wright brothers didn't discover aerodynamics, right? They just learned how to use. They just learned how to use what was already here. Everything that we're discovering is from something that's already here. So I asked people a question. I said, let's say you want to hear classical music. You can, take your phone, just turn on. There's no wires. You can just tune into a classical music station. Where's the music coming from? It's not coming from inside my cell phone. The cell phone has a receiver that's tuning in to a radio frequency for classical music. Well, you can't see it, but we know there's radio waves in the rooms we're in, the cars we're listening to this in. Well, the receiver tunes in to classical music. Well, what if I don't want classical music anymore? What if I want punk rock? Well, I can go, okay, well, turn the station. Tune into a different frequency that's already here. You can't see it, but the receivers and tuners line up, and you can hear that music. Well, we have a brain that's been evolving for billions of years. It is an electromagnetic switching station that tunes in or tunes out of different frequencies. When light travels through our eyes, light is what? Energy, right? That energy of what we're seeing, is deciphered by our brain, and an image activates on the back of our brain called the occipital lobe, and then we have a meaning for that image, and we know what that is. Same with sound, same with tactile. Well, if you want to achieve the relationship of your dreams, to meet somebody that you love, to find business success, to find relationship success, to whatever it is, it's already here. Now, here's something most people don't understand, is you cannot say 50% of businesses fail, therefore, I probably shouldn't try, because your brain says, okay, let me show you that 50%. Right? You can't say it's really hard to meet the love of my life, and your brain's going to say, oh, no, don't worry about that. I'll make it happen. Your brain says, okay, I'm going to make it really hard, because that's what you're tuning into. So are you tuning into the how hard it is, how difficult it is, how impossible it is, how it's not meant for you? Is that what you're tuning into? Or are you able to say, hey, that possibility exists, but so does this. Let me focus on this. So when you learn how to tune your attention units, again, you have a brain. You're not your brain. You could teach it to be aware of this and this and this and this could go wrong. Yes, I agree. In the universe we live in, there is something called the law of polarity. You cannot have an up without a down, an inside without an outside. You cannot have anything in the universe, a proton without an electron, in balance and equal proportions. We live in a universe of balance and proportions. But what most people don't understand is when you focus on the disempowering or negative, and you keep doing that, then you are training your brain to keep focusing on that, and it deletes and distorts all of the other stuff. That is something that so many people do. And we live in a universe of duality. So you cannot have this without that. It doesn't occur in nature. So can you train your brain to focus on both? This is possible, that this may fail, this may not work out, he may be an idiot, she may be a this, I won't succeed here, and that's a possibility. Okay, now let me flip to, how can I do this? How can I find him? How can I do that? How can I achieve that? What knowledge, what skills, what tool, what resource do I need to make this a reality versus that one? Because the truth is, the realities of both always exist in equal proportion.
And why not tip your hands in the favor of one versus the other? Yeah, last but not least, and I'm really excited for the Brain-A-Thon. I'm definitely going to do it myself.
Awesome.
Unless you'd like to leave us with anything else, I recently interviewed Ariel Ford, author of The Secret, and she's a friend of yours, and she said, ask John about his affinity for hot sauce. And apparently you're some either expert in it or you're obsessed with it. I'm not sure. She said, ask him about it. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what you have to say there. You might have some culinary tips for us.
Well, I'm not obsessed or an expert. When I was a little boy, my father is Moroccan from Morocco. And so everything that they ate, they put spices on, hot sauce. And so I just acquired this love for different hot sauces. And so I travel the world, and one of the first things that I do is I go and buy hot sauces. And it became so much of a passion of mine as a hobby, I started to play around with my sons with creating our own hot sauces. So I take the flavors that I like and I just throw them in a blender, and I have hot sauce parties. And my friends, when they were young, my kids, when they were younger, used to invite their friends over to say, come on, taste my dad's hot sauce. And we'd have these little hot sauce parties, like we'll have wine or beer tasting parties, and we'd have toothpicks in different levels of heat. And so I just love, I don't love hot sauces as much as I love sauces that are really, really, really spicy and flavorable. So like I put, anise, licorice in my hot sauces. I put certain types of fruits. I'll add garlic into my hot. I like these combinations of flavors that are pretty hot for my taste buds, but I also create some for, friends and family for the holidays that are not, the brutally hot ones. You just get accustomed to your heat sensors diminish a little bit as you eat a lot of hot sauces. So thanks, Ariel, for sharing that.
Outing you on your obsession with hot sauce. Anything else you'd like to leave our audience? Actually, just maybe you can touch on this. Let's say, there's a lot of people who just think life is the way it is. I think the way I am, and they're bored, they're depressed. There are receptors here to light up that haven't been lit up for years. What if someone's just afraid that they don't want to look at their own stuff? They don't want to get in there because it might be scary in and of itself, like the fear to even join Brain-A-Thon. I mean, what would you have to say for those people? Because I feel like everybody's got to get there at some point. This inner sizing and looking at oneself is the way to happiness, really.
Sure. So I think first and foremost, the Brain-A-Thon is just an educational event, just like right now. And so we just have 7 experts instead of me. So it's really non-evasive. It's really simple. It's easy. We have fun. We do Q&As. We have an amazing chat during that. So that's the part about the Brain-A-Thon. But the thing that I would like people to focus on is if you have and keep that attitude, you've pretty much sealed your fate that you're going to have more of what you have right now. And my question for you would be this. If there was a safe, gentle, easy way without blame, shame, guilt, judgment, or justification for you to feel safe, to look at what may really be holding you back. Maybe you've suffered traumas in your life, emotional trauma, physical trauma. Maybe you've had experiences that have just shut you down, that you have suppressed and you've been ashamed of, or you feel like, you know what, I just can't deal with this. There's hope, and there's a way to help you out of that gently and efficiently. In a safe way. And I know a lot about depression because my mother's been a manic depressive for 65 years. So I know a lot about suppression. She left Romania when she was 11 years old when the war broke out and the Russians were invading Romania at the time. And she was traumatized beyond belief in holding camps and things like that. And it changed and ruined her life. And so what I understand is I understand, the fear. I also understand the desire to stay in your comfort zone, but I also want to share with you that there's hope and there's a way, for you to feel more expressive versus in a depressed state. And all you've got to do is level up your knowledge and skills a little bit about what may be going on within you so that you can make choices. One of the things that I learned many years ago is when you become more aware, it's the awareness that gives you the choice. And so what I'd like to suggest for anybody who's hurting, suffering, I understand, and put yourself, in a position of having choices to make that are better and safe for you to just make tiny little steps towards being free again, because that's something you deserve.
That's very well said. Thank you so much. And everybody, myneurogym.com. We will put everything in the show notes. And also coming up again, the 7th annual Brain-A-Thon is October 6, 2018. So please get on there, learn a little bit more about how to rewire. And thank you so much for spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So good to see you.